name's Lisa Thayer, and the business is Gordy's Goodies Pet Food and Supplies. And we sell specialty pet food and pet supplies like toys, treats, walking gear, so dog collars, harnesses, and leashes, and then also some supplements for mostly for dogs and cats, really. The other big piece of my concept is that I have a dedicated space inside the store that I'm going to invite rescues from around the valley to hold adoption days. Hopefully, fingers crossed, like every Saturday, someone will be here. So, I worked for the Arizona Humane Society about 4 years ago, and I worked for them for about 4.5 years, and they had these really great concepts of retail and adoption locations inside malls. So they did both, and the retail side of it gave back to the bottom line gave back to the shelter. So anything people purchased there gave back. And then of course people could come to that kind of arena to see adoptable pets, because a lot of people have actually a hard time going to the shelters emotionally. So it was a great idea. I worked for them, helped manage the stores, and then became the buyer of all the pet retail, and quickly found my obsession with dog toys because I have a lot of dogs, and just loved it. And I love everything about it. I love the research, the purchasing, and then the merchandising of it, which is putting it out in the store and making it look good. The idea started last August, and then we moved pretty quickly, found the space pretty quickly. The financing was probably the hardest part, and that's because everyone says, oh, small business loans, grants for women in business and things like that, and it's actually a lot tougher than it seems. And small business loans actually want you to be, they're not startup loans, which is what I needed. So there is kind of a difference. And with a small business loan, they want you to be in business for like 6 months. And I'm like, okay, well, I need money to get into business. So that was a challenge and a disappointment. And then with grants, they're a great idea, but a lot of the time, most of the time actually, they're very specific to what industry they want it in. And that's understandable. And they're also small. I needed kind of a big chunk to just open the store. And so after a few things after that, researching into it, then, and actually I read a lot that a lot of small business owners just end up investing their own money and taking loans out, either home equity loan or personal loan, things like that. And that's ultimately what we ended up doing. Now the business is paying it back, but that's how I was able to do this. So, but out of everything I spent money on, my biggest expense was inventory. So, finding a place to lease, what's kind of cool is the landlords a lot of times will work with you and give you an incentive to move in there, especially in this area, because there's a lot of businesses that are, or storefronts that are up for lease right now, that allow for, the first several months, no rent, which is a nice little, phew, and especially with what we're going through now. And then, but inventory, making sure you got everything you need, that you want to just the basics to start off with. So my landlord helped me out quite a bit, and that was part of the lease. They were going to do the build out. My build out wasn't very much either, so I assume with other store, brick and mortar places, that build outs can get quite costly. I definitely was never one to want to own my own business. And it just got to a point, I'm 47 years old. I've held a lot of different types of jobs in a lot of different industries. I've always been successful, I will say that. Been in many leadership positions, and it kind of got to the point of, and I think there's a lot of us in this age range that you're like, okay, I know the type of person I want to work for, and I know the type of company I want to work for, and I always kind of felt undervalued for my knowledge and my experience. And so I was talking to my husband one night, and I said, I don't know, it's like I should just open up my own store. And he said, well, why don't you? And I'm like, because I never wanted to do that before, and I don't have the money, like what am I supposed to do? And it just didn't leave my head for like a week. That's all I could think about is, well, I know exactly what my store would look like because I've been doing it for so long and it's my passion. So I told him and he said, all right, let's start. And then that's just kind of how it happened. And now that it's here, it's a nice place for me to go every day and work, and I'm my own boss, and I get to hire the people I want to work with, and I think and I get to bring my dogs to work when I want to. I think that's what keeps me going, and that's about half of what keeps me going. The other half is my customers that come in, especially when they come in with their pets, but they come in and talk to me about their pets. And I could talk about people's pets like for hours. And I love when they come in and, maybe they're switching over their food to a brand that I carry that's really good quality. And they come back and say what a difference it's made, in their pet's diet and, their digestion and everything like that. So I only have one part-time employee, and which I need. And she's a good friend of mine. We've worked together before. We're almost identical in how we work, so it works out great. And she only works like 8 hours a week, but even that little bit in payroll, it's like, whoa. So the payroll thing, I think, is kind of you're never really sure how much that, and then the taxes that go along with it. So I've always been in some sort of customer service. So my first job for like 15 years was in the restaurant business, and I did everything in the restaurants, from busser to manager, cook, everything, server, bartender, all of that stuff. And then I went into higher education, and I worked as a registrar with that. So my customers there were the students, and then my employees. And then from that is where that's where actually I stopped. I was in higher education for many years, and then I finally decided, I was like, this isn't what I want to do. And I was going to college at the time, trying to find something else to do, and I decided that I was going to take a pay cut and go and do what I love and work for the Arizona Humane Society. And I got hired as an adoption specialist, and it was the first time ever that I wasn't counting when I could take use one of my vacation days, and that sounds so terrible, I know, but like, I just wasn't happy at any of my jobs that I had, and I tried, but once I got to the Humane Society, it was like, one day my manager said, Lisa, you have to take some vacation time, and I said, oh, okay, you just, when you're doing what you love, you forget about it, and they're doing adoptions, you see these just happy people taking home their forever friend now, and helping them find this stuff to take home with them with the retail, and it was just a fun place to work, and so I stuck with it. I like to call myself a professional shopper too, because I do love shopping. So I've always thought that I had a good sense of first of all, what makes a store shoppable? Like, what makes it flow well? How does it feel when you walk in? Are things easy to find? Are things logically placed? And then the other part of it is my customer service I do feel like I have exceptional customer service. I'm excited when people come in, and I've always been that way. I love to help people, and that's part of good customer service. That's just, even if you're having a terrible day, when you come into work, you got to put on that smile and be grateful that they're coming in your door. And I appreciate all my customers. And finally, the brands that I carry are they're small family-owned brands, and they will only sell, at least the food brands are, and they only sell to, or they only allow small local businesses to carry their food. So some of the other small pet food stores, you will see that they'll have similar brands that I do, but we're such a small niche in this community, and the people, once they get turned on, and these brands are amazing, and when they get turned on to it, they're so devoted to that brand that they will look, they go on the store locator of the pages and where's my closest place, So last weekend I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I don't know if this is a good thing, you know. Also that I'm like, oh my God, now I have to work 6 days a week for a while. You know, I mean, that's a big shift because I didn't work for the last couple of years. I took a break. And, but, you know, having the financing to do it, and I only, you know, I'll put it out there, I did this with $50,000. And that's still where I'm at, even after 2 weeks of opening and continually purchasing inventory. Of course, now I have a little bit of income coming in, not much, but it's working. And so being really diligent with the budget, which was really hard for me because I love to buy. So I like my restraint on buying great pet stuff. I was like, I want all this, you know. But what I did was I kind of did, like I said, I started with the essentials to open. And then this last week I purchased, you know, kind of my next step of stuff. You know, I want to make sure I had supplements in the store and some other items that I know a lot of pet parents purchase. And just going slowly with the inventory. Like you're never going to have everything you need unless you have, you know, tons of money to put into it. So be diligent with the budget, and then have patience, because there was roadblocks that were coming up of pushing my opening date. Like it kept getting pushed out every month, you know, and because I was ready to go. I had all my pre-prep done. I had my purchase orders put together, ready to submit, and literally there was nothing I could do until the financing came through finally and the construction was done. So knowing that it's going to happen when it will, and being patient with it is probably, those would probably be my 3 pieces of advice. If you get an opportunity to do something, I would say don't be afraid to put it out there. I mean, the worst that could happen is financing people say no, which I got, but then we finally figured it out. You know, if it's your passion and you're just not, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But if there's someone out there that can help you through stuff like this and get you to that point of opening a business that you're passionate about, and that's, I think, also making sure you do your homework that the community needs it. There's nothing like this in this community. Just go for it, you know, and, you know, usually with like leases, the minimum is 3 years. I mean, 3 years flies by. And then if you decide you don't want to do it, then don't do it. And all it did was you did it for a little while, and either it didn't work out or you just decided like, okay, that's enough type of thing. So I think it's worth it to take the chance.